Have you heard the term parasocial relationship before, but you don't really know what that means? Do you know what parasocial relationship means, but you'd like to know more? Are you the world's premier expert on parasocial relationships? It doesn't matter. You're in the right place. My name is Caroline, and today's video is going to be in the style of video essay, and today's topic is parasocial relationships. A parasocial relationship is a connection that a person forms to someone that they do not personally know. This could be with a famous person or with a character in a book. We most often associate the term parasocial relationship with social media these days, but it is not exclusively a 21st century phenomenon. The term parasocial relationship was coined in 1956 by Donald Horton and R. Richard Wall. They used it to talk about the psychological attachment people were forming to TV characters. But just because the term parasocial relationship wasn't coined until 1956 doesn't mean that there weren't parasocial relationships before 1956. There were certainly parasocial relationships with film stars like Judy Garland. People were obsessed. Shirley Temple, the people thought that was their child. Charlie Chaplin. I don't know, maybe people were like, that guy and his hilarious falling down thing, I love it, that guy's my best friend. But people were definitely forming parasocial relationships with characters in books from the time that novels were a big thing. I think if you're writing fan fiction about characters from a novel, that's a pretty good indicator that you have a parasocial relationship with those characters. If you love them so much that you are using your own imagination to create new scenarios with those characters, even if those are sultry scenarios. Parasocial relationships don't have to be parasocial friendships. They can be parasocial spicy relationships. And there is evidence of fan fiction, spicy and otherwise, from as early as Gulliver's Travels, which was published in the 1700s. People were writing fan fiction about that man. They were drawing images of him, imagining that if he's so tall, because he was a giant, that what else would be so big? And I just thought it was interesting that fan fiction has been around since the dawn of the modern novel. It's probably been around for longer in other cultures, but because of our Western centralized media, I could only find examples from Western culture. But yeah. Is a parasocial relationship a bad thing? No. Not inherently. I think that the term parasocial relationship has a bit of a negative connotation right now. It's often associated with people who take that one-sided connection too far and start to act on behalf of the person that they have that connection with, sometimes in the form of harassing others on the internet, sometimes in the form of feeling obligated to buy things from that person that they don't actually want. We'll talk more about that kind of stuff later. But parasocial relationships are not inherently harmful. You can have a one-sided relationship with a celebrity or an internet personality or a character in a book, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. You can have a parasocial relationship with me if you want. But here are some signs that perhaps the parasocial relationship is going too far. 1, when you start to believe that the parasocial relationship isn't one-sided. If you start to believe that this person you have this connection with that you've never met actually cares about you individually. I'm not talking about if you believe that a celebrity or whoever cares about their fan base. I'm talking about if you start to believe that that person cares about you on an individual level. For example, if you truly believed that if you direct messaged them, they would reply to you. And if they haven't replied to you, it's only because they haven't seen your direct message, not because they've chosen not to reply to you or they have no interest in communicating with you. But once you start to believe that this relationship isn't just one-sided, you are going to be willing to do things for this person you've never met that you shouldn't be doing for a person that you've never met. Another sign that your parasocial relationship might be going too far is if it prevents you from entertaining any criticism of that person, no matter what the source of the criticism is, and no matter how much evidence for that criticism there is. Of course, if someone vile, like Andrew Tate, said something negative about your favorite, I wouldn't expect, nor should you listen to that person. But if someone that you respect and admire, if a news source that you respect were to say something about your fave and your instant reaction would be, I'm not going to listen to any of that, that could show an unhealthy level of allegiance to somebody that you've never met. None of us are perfect. So none of us should be on a pedestal of we can't do anything wrong and we've never done anything wrong. People can do things wrong. And if your parasocial relationship prevents you from acknowledging that your fave is capable of doing things wrong, then it veers into worship. Another element to that is feeling the need to defend your favorite from fair criticism. If your person that you have a parasocial relationship with were criticized and you would feel obligated to go into every comment section you saw to argue that the criticism isn't true without doing any research outside of listening to what that person told you, the statement, the press statement that came out from their team about how the controversy isn't true, if you would feel the need to go into comment sections and defend that person, again, that's an allegiance that you have towards them that would never be reciprocated. And now you're acting on their behalf. Blindly acting on their behalf. Another sign that the relationship could be going too far is if you feel obligated to financially support the person that you have a parasocial relationship with. Now, I'm not saying don't buy merch, don't buy albums, that kind of thing. If you want to buy it, buy it. I'm talking about feeling like you have to buy things, even if the thing, the product that's been presented to you by the person you have a parasocial relationship with isn't something you actually want. If you would feel guilty about not purchasing from their merch drop or not buying their album, they are not paying your bills in that same way. They are likely in a much better financial position than you are. And that kind of obligation to them, that blind support that I will pay for things from them, whether I want those things or not, you don't need to do that, right? Like, that's kind of similar to tithing at church. Like, if you're doing it that blindly. Now let's talk about the parasocial relationships I have, because I do have them. I have parasocial relationships with a lot of the queens from RuPaul's Drag Race. I legitimately feel like we could be friends. I think I know more about their personalities than I actually know because I'm really only seeing the curated version of them on RuPaul's Drag Race. But something that shows that those relationships aren't too far is I am still wide open to criticism about those people. If I were to see criticism about one of the drag queens that I really love, I would listen to the criticism and I would be willing to leave that allegiance behind. I have a parasocial relationship to Nicola Coughlan, and she liked one of my videos and she commented like these smiley faces and the laughing face, and that made the parasocial relationship stronger, I'd say. I think she's great. I think she's a good person. I think she's a great activist. I think she would be fun to hang out with. All of that is parasocial relationship material. But again, if there were criticism of Nicola, I would listen to it. If there were fair criticism of Nicola, I would listen to it, and I would be willing to abandon that relationship because ultimately, none of my life is built around that relationship. I'm in kind of a unique position to talk about parasocial relationships because it has somebody with somewhat of a social media following. People have formed parasocial relationships with me, and so I want to spend a little time talking about what that feels like from my end. Let's start with the stuff that doesn't bother me at all. A lot of times people will leave comments like, I just think we would get along so well. I feel like we would be best friends in real life. I relate to you so much, things like that. And I'm not weirded out by comments like that. I don't think that those are invasive because I don't believe any of those people have an expectation of, I think that we could be really great friends and I'm going to make that happen. It's just that they see camaraderie in my personality and they relate to that. And for all I know, if we did hang out, we would have great chemistry. But the reality is I don't have time to hang out with every person that makes a comment like that. And I'm kind of introverted in real life. And I barely make time for the friends that I actually have in real life. So for a lot of reasons, those theoretical hangouts won't happen, but I don't think that it's bad or nefarious for people to speculate that, hey, I bet we'd get along. But that is a sign of a parasocial relationship. Another thing people that are in a parasocial relationship with me do that I don't mind is they see things out in the world and they send those things to me. I'm not talking physical things. I do not have a P.O. box. I briefly had a P.O. box and I was sent a gift and multiple people claimed to be the ones that sent me that gift, and then I realized that I didn't want to participate in a P.O. box because of the inherent one-sided nature. Like if somebody gets me a gift, I want to thank them, and not being able to always properly do that and not being able to guarantee I would always have the time to do that. I just didn't want that to be out there because there are people that have expectations that if I send this to this person I've never met, they're going to do something for me. I'm talking about sending like memes or seeing a video and it makes that person think of me and so they send it to me. I don't have any problem with people doing that, but I also don't see it. I don't check my DMs from people that I don't know nearly ever. If someone sends me a picture and I don't know that person, the picture is blurred, so I'm not going to unblur it because it could be, you know what it could be. I don't think there's harm in that, but I do think, if you can shift that energy to somebody that you do know in real life, that could actually help you build a friendship relationship with them. If you see something and it makes you think of me or Brittany Broski or whoever else, and you send those things our way, could you use that energy to send things to someone that might send you things back? I don't mind, but I do think it's potentially wasted energy if you're looking to get something out of it. The next one I don't love. I don't love when people do this, and that's when people are disappointed in me. I don't feel that anybody that doesn't know me personally has the right to be disappointed in me. Disappointment is subjective. I've had people comment that they're disappointed with me when I've supported lesbians. One time I made a video that was pro-lesbian, because of course. And you've got people who feel very strongly about their religious beliefs commenting that they're disappointed in me. I've had people comment that they're disappointed in me for a variety of reasons. And the term disappointed has such an emotional weight, right? I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. You're not my dad, you're not my mom. If I do something that really bothers you, just block me, right? Just block me. Disappointment conveys to me entitlement of this person expects me to act this way always, This person believes that I am beholden to them. And it's just a bit too strong of an emotion for my taste, for someone who hasn't met me. The next one amuses me. It doesn't annoy me, it doesn't make me mad, but I do notice it and think it's kind of funny. And that's when people act shocked whenever I provide personal details about myself that I haven't provided yet. I have a husband. Okay, I have a husband, and most of the time when I say that I have a husband, I get so many comments that are like, you have a husband? I thought you were a lesbian. I thought you were 18. I thought you were XYZ. They're so shocked that they have not personally been informed of the husband. Tyler. His name's Tyler. He's kind and funny. But I had one person comment on TikTok once, you have a husband? What chapter did I miss? I found that comment really interesting because thus far, that's not the book I've been providing, right? Like, most of my work is fiction. Most of my videos are character videos. We're getting a little bit more into the nonfiction with stuff like this, but I have not provided a biography or attempted to provide a biography. So it's an autobiography. So it's interesting, this idea that if you don't know something about me, that's because you missed it and not because I just haven't said it that much or haven't said it at all. Another one that can be kind of annoying is when people joke with me like they know me, like we're close friends, we're chums, and it is our routine to roast each other. Stuff like, girl, I love you, but you need to take a shower, or girl, I love you, but that's the wrong color eyeshadow for you, or that's not doing you any favors, blah, blah, blah. I don't joke like that, even with my friends in real life. I'm not really like a roaster. And I don't appreciate it. And it's like too familiar. You don't know me like that. It just reads as an insult. Maybe in your mind we're both friends, but to me this is a stranger insulting me. Next is parasocial concern. People can have genuine parasocial concern. They can be genuinely concerned about you. If you make a video saying you're going through a hard time, they can feel vaguely worried about you and be vaguely relieved when they see that you post again. I think that that's not a problem, but I do think that parasocial concern can go too far if it is taking up a lot of your energy. If you are spending a lot of your day worried about me or anybody else, I am not going to reciprocate that for you. Celebrities are not going to reciprocate that for you. I'm not going to be concerned when you're going through a hard time because I'm not going to know that you're going through a hard time. But hopefully you have friends and family in your real life that if you were going through a hard time, they would be worried about you. And I think that we only have capacity for so much empathy. We get fatigued by having our heart on our sleeve at all times, and for your sake, I advise you to guard your energy that way. If I'm on Reddit, I will immediately hide any post that is of someone whose pet has passed away, because I am going to grieve my own pet one day. I'm going to help friends grieve their pets. I'm going to be there for them in that time. So I do not think I'm obligated to, nor do I wish to, participate in more grief than I need to participate in. So I let other people on the internet show support to those people, but I have learned that I have a big heart for this kind of thing, and I can't even let myself see it anymore. It's not my grief. It's not my friend's grief. I will have my turn to support people through grief. I'm not going to do it for strangers on the internet. And I think something like that can be applied to the parasocial relationships you have with people. There's also parasocial fake concern, which is just parasocial hate disguised as concern. And that can look like a lot of things, right? That can look like people being like, I'm so concerned about her just because she's overweight and she's gonna be susceptible to heart disease or diabetes. Like, obviously, that person is not genuinely concerned about the health of this stranger on the internet. They just feel superior and they want to say these things. Let's say someone comments on an influencer, I'm just concerned with how quickly she's spending her money. I think that this just can't be good for her to be spending all this money everywhere. It's like, you don't really care whether or not this person goes broke. This is just you participating and watching them do something that you think is cringe or that you think is embarrassing without acknowledging that you're watching it out of hate. Pretending like you're concerned is a way to disguise hate. And I do have people who parasocially hate me. A lot of people have a lot more people that parasocially hate them. Parasocial hate is a scary thing. Subreddits devoted to hating a person, to detailing everything that they do in order to criticize. That's a lot of energy spent on someone you don't like. That's a crazy amount of energy to spend on someone you don't like. And we're not talking about I'm not talking about massive celebrities here. I'm talking about more these subreddits for small-time influencers with hundreds of people who just post every Instagram story, every whatever, just to pick it apart and detail all the things wrong with it in a dissertation. It's intense, and if you really think this person is so bad, they don't deserve that energy from you. I just believe that your energy is precious. And when you start to look at where you're spending all your energy, if you're spending a lot of energy hating something, especially someone that has no idea you exist, I don't know, what's the end goal? That's just stuff that I've experienced. But now we're going to talk about stuff that goes way beyond what I've experienced. The first thing we're going to talk about is parasocial communities. If you're famous enough, if you're dynamic enough, if you're popular enough, if enough people have a parasocial relationship with you, they may just all come together on the internet probably, but sometimes in real life, and form a parasocial community. A parasocial community is a community made up of all people that have the same parasocial relationship. They all have a parasocial relationship with the same person. And that person is not at all involved in the community. They are not organizing their own parasocial community most of the time. The community organizes itself. The fans find each other. I don't think fan communities are inherently bad. I think they can be a great place for people to find others with similar interests and find friends. I do think that fan communities can increase the intensity of parasocial relationships in certain people. In these communities, the parasocial relationships can feed off of one another. The community serves to validate the parasocial relationship you have with this person A. Everybody here is that obsessed with this person, so it's normal to be that obsessed with this person. You post fan art you drew of a celebrity, and you're met with praise and people telling you what great work that is. You're in a community that's isolated from the usual criticism you might face over your fandom. Now, I don't think you should be criticized for drawing fan art or anything like that, but in these communities, you encourage each other to maintain that intense relationship with the parasocial figure, because to not feel that strongly anymore means not being a part of this community anymore that sometimes has grown to mean a lot to you. These communities also often discourage or even ban criticism of the parasocial figure. So you're not getting any balance within the community most of the time. You are only hearing positive things about this person. You're only allowed to say positive things about this person. And so when you feel negative things, when that person does something that makes you doubt your blind allegiance to them, you feel like an outsider for feeling that way because you're an outsider within that community. But you are not an outsider usually in the broader landscape. Usually, people outside of that intense fandom do hold space for criticism of people they've never met, celebrities they've never met. Now, how much control do these celebrities really have over the fandoms that are built around them? I think that they have the capacity for a great deal of control, or at least influence, over these fandoms, because they're fandoms that are built around the idea that what that person has to say is important. So if that person says, hey, stop harassing people on my behalf, I think that has a big impact on the fandom, because ultimately everybody that has a parasocial relationship with this figure does not want to disappoint them, and they believe that disappointing that person is possible. Because if you've got this parasocial relationship with a celebrity, they can disappoint you. So it only follows that you as a fan base could disappoint them, and you want to avoid doing that. And celebrities can use that for good, or they can use that neutrally, or they can use that to allow harassment to happen, or even encourage harassment to happen. If a celebrity directly asks their fan base to stand up for them, that can be really dangerous, because the idea of standing up for someone is subjective. And if you rally your audience into action, you cannot control any longer what exactly that action is going to look like. If you say, stand up for me, to some people, that's innocent enough. That means if someone starts saying, oh, this celebrity is a bitch, you say, oh, actually, no, they aren't. They're XYZ. Okay, that's relatively harmless. But some people in your fan base are going to try to do it the best, to do what you've asked of them the very best. And if they believe that you're asking them to defend you against other people, oh, well, in the United States, we have the defend your ground or stand your ground law, which means that you can shoot someone that comes on your property. There are unwell people out there, and the larger your fan base is, the more likely there are people who are mentally unwell in your fan base. The more likely there are people who have delusions about their relationship with you that are in your fan base. And if you encourage them to take any sort of action, you need to be careful about your words, because they can cause, even if you're intending to cause harm with a fan base, they can cause so much more harm than you intended. There are celebrities that encourage parasocial relationships, and there are celebrities that discourage parasocial relationships. Any celebrity that has a name for their fan base encourages parasocial relationships. The Bayhive, Swifties. I don't remember what the Ariana Grande fans are named, but they have a name. The Barbs. Creating a name for your fan base creates an identity for your fan base, invites people, encourages people to want to become a part of a community. Beyonce is so interesting to me because people don't really have parasocial friendships with her, but they certainly have a parasocial relationship to her, the exact one that she's curated, of like she's their parasocial sophisticated aunt, or their parasocial mother, or their parasocial goddess. Like, they do have a relationship with Beyonce, but Beyonce does not do very many interviews, does not give a lot of access to details about her personal life. And so people don't actually know that much about her. They have no illusion that Beyonce wants to be their friend, because Beyonce doesn't often give off the impression that she's interested in friends at all. But they still have a parasocial obligation and a parasocial reverence for her, and they can still believe that she does no wrong. It's just the dynamic of that relationship is different from, let's say, Taylor Swift, who very much encourages parasocial friendships, you know, the secret sessions where she would play her albums for these groups of fans in her own home and bake cookies with them. All of that encourages her fans to believe that she truly views them as equal to her, right? She invites you into her home. She bakes cookies with you. She cares about you as a friend. Then there are celebrities that very much discourage parasocial relationships. These are the people I think of as like the artist's artist. The reason they got into the entertainment industry truly was not to be famous. It was because they have a love for whatever craft they have, whether that be music or acting or writing. Daniel Day-Lewis comes to mind. Jesse Eisenberg comes to mind for whatever reason. But if they don't have a social media presence, that's one sign that they discourage or at least don't fuel parasocial relationships that people have with them. If they don't do very many interviews with press outlets, or they only do interviews when they've currently got something that they are promoting, if you do not know much about their personal life, if they have never said things publicly about their relationship, about their kids, if you've never seen their kids' faces, I love that. If anybody knows about me, they know that I hate family vlogging, and I truly believe that the Kardashians are one of the OG family vloggers, and, you know, if the celebrity doesn't give you access to that kind of thing, that's a sign that they're discouraging parasocial relationships. And you don't see fan bases popping up around celebrities, communities popping up around celebrities that discourage those relationships. Like, you don't see a Brie Larson fan group, and it's not because Brie Larson isn't an excellent actress. She is, and maybe there's a small Brie Larson subreddit, I don't know. But she doesn't encourage people to do anything for her. And when parasocial relationships are being manipulated, that artist is asking you to take action for them as something that you kind of owe them. It's one thing to say, hey, I have a new album out. And then it's another thing to make your audience feel like in order to support you, they need to buy your album, they need to buy a physical copy of the album, they need to buy several variants of the album, they need to actually purchase it on iTunes, they can't just stream it. If they feel like they have to do those things, if you've encouraged them to feel like those are the right things to do, that morally those are the right things to do, well, then you're definitely taking financial advantage of the parasocial relationships around you. Finally, let's talk about how social media has lowered the barrier for entry for having a parasocial fandom or having people who have a parasocial relationship with you, and how that could potentially be dangerous. So with TikTok in particular, this is the age of anyone can have a platform. If you commit to it, if you commit to making videos frequently, to posting videos nearly every day, if you are consistent with that, you can amass 10,000 followers. It doesn't really matter so much. If you are particularly charismatic or talented or whatever else, you can just be a person that lives a life that shows the life that they live, and you can have parasocial fans who feel like they're your real friend. But when we're talking about these smaller audiences, the lines are blurrier. Nobody thinks that Taylor Swift is really their friend. Well, people do think that, but there are checks and balances, right? For every person that thinks that Taylor Swift is really their friend or Ariana Grande is really their friend, there are other people around to say, no, she doesn't care about you. And that's good. That's healthy. That keeps people grounded. But if you are really into this creator and you message them and they message you back, and now every time they post a video, you comment on it and they reply to you. It can really feel like they are your friend. It can really feel like they do care about you in a tangible way. And that can open you up to being scammed. If a person with a small following has an interest in scamming people, they could do that through the parasocial relationships that people have formed. They could get you to spend money on things that you don't need. They could get you to feel obligated to them. They could get you to feel like you're being a bad friend when you're not really their friend if you don't donate to something, if you don't give to them. And yes, big celebrities can also do this. But I think that what's more dangerous about it on a smaller scale is it doesn't get noticed, and people can get sucked in to these almost mini cult of personalities of one person. You can be the only person in that little cult, and nobody is going to pull you out of it because they don't even know you're in it. That's, I think, what's more dangerous about the smaller scale, is that people don't even realize how many of these micro fandoms are happening and what's happening in the micro fandoms and the ways in which they could potentially be harmful, or the ways in which they're already doing harmful things. So how do you prevent yourself from falling down a parasocial rabbit hole? Number 1, don't assume anything about the celebrity or the influencer, whoever, that they haven't directly told you themselves. When you relate to someone, when you see yourself in someone, it's really easy to say, oh, well, they said they believe X, and I believe X so strongly, so that must mean that they also believe Y, because I believe Y, and that they also believe Z, because that's what I believe. But if they haven't directly told you that, you don't know that that's true. I'm talking about moral issues, political issues, anything that you care strongly about. Don't assume that that person also cares strongly about it because they share some of the values, or they claim to share some of the values that you have. Number 2, invest in your friendships that are not at all related to any fandoms. Invest in your in-person friendships. I know that that's easier said than done. I know that loneliness is an epidemic right now, and that a lot of people really get the majority of their social interaction online. And if that's the case for you, at the very least, I would encourage you to seek communities that are not based around the fandom of something or someone, so that you are not in a position where your relationships hinge on you maintaining that level of intensity about a public figure. Anyways, I hope you found this video entertaining. Let me know if you would like more videos like this. My name's Caroline. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you guys have a great week. You've got this.